Welcome back to the Champagne on Ice podcast presented by the Field of 68. Illinois survives and advances to the round of 32, beating Morehead State 85-69. It wasn't pretty for a lot of the game, but Illinois, big second half run and comfortably takes care of business against the 14 seed. I am Kyle Tausk, joined as always by Mike Farmer. And Mike, deep breath. That one was stressful for 25 minutes or so. Halftime was pretty excruciating there, only leading by one, but Illinois, huge second half and one game away from a second weekend appearance.
God, that game was super exciting towards the end, but man, the first 25, even 30 minutes, even some points during the huge run we had, I'm shaking. My heart is racing. I could not take it. Almost losing to a 14 seed. Just another almost tournament upset for the Illini, but you pulled through. Got huge contributions off the bench, huge contributions from Shannon, from Damask. Hawkins played pretty well. But man, feels good to get back to the second round.
Absolutely. And especially when Morehead State came out and made three straight threes to start the game, and it's 9-0 after like 15 seconds, and you're like, oh, is it really going to be this type of game, huh? But Illinois withstood that punch pretty well. They really responded and grabbed the lead pretty quickly after that. Now, Morehead State stuck around for a lot of the first half and made some shots. Illinois went into the break up by one, and Morehead State led by one at the under 16 timeout of the second half, but that's when Illinois finally broke it open, made a huge run, 13-3 run initially, sparked by Dane Danger, forced Morehead State into a timeout, and then from that point forward, Illinois completely took control of the game and didn't have to sweat for the final 12 minutes or so. So won't complain about that win at all. You survive and advance in this tournament. Illinois got some great contributions, like you mentioned, from a couple different guys, namely Danger, 21 points, 8 rebounds, 9-9 off the bench. He has been huge the last week or so. Obviously, Terrence Shannon showed up to play, was huge in the first half to give Illinois the lead initially. And then Marcus Damask, first triple-double in an NCAA tournament game in Illinois history, just the 10th ever in the NCAA tournament. Morehead State was double-teaming him like 20 feet from the basket, and I thought he was outstanding in passing out of those and initiating offense for the Illini. So what stood out most to you about this win for Illinois? What was most encouraging about the way that it played out?
This isn't my main takeaway, but as you mentioned, the Damask assists. 24 assists on 32 made field goals. We have not seen anything like that in a single game this season from Illinois. That is just beyond encouraging. The way that it moved the ball, Damask passing out of double teams, just swinging it around the top of the key, finding open guys for threes, making passes in transition, just beautiful facilitating and playmaking from Illinois. That's a huge key for me. But overall, I think we've seen the same kind of formula for Illinois the last 4 or 5 games maybe. Terrence Shannon just keeps them in the game in the first half, scores like 20 points every single time in the first 15 minutes. And then second half gets going. Other guys like Dane, Damask gets going, Hawkins gets going, Goody gets going. Huge contributions from guys off the bench. Even some starters start to kind of wake up in the second half. And Illinois has these huge runs, huge extended runs where they just take control of the game. And they've been really well at closing games. They didn't really have to have a huge crunch time effort to close this game today, but overall, they've done that super well. So just in total, Shannon continues to be dominant. When he wants to score, he can score. When he wants to get to the free throw line, he does. He's settled a couple times early in the first half, or late in the first half, sorry. And I don't know, things didn't look great there, but overall, zero complaints from Shannon. Damask was getting double teamed, couldn't really do much offensively scoring wise, but as we've seen, a triple double for like first one in Illinois history, of course, in the tournament. Only 9 other ones in tournament history, all combined. Just insane for a guy that we talked like early in the season. Yeah, he's a good player coming from a mid-major. He'll be a solid contributor on this team, hopefully. He comes in on a 3-seed Big Ten tournament champion team, second best player, drops a triple double in his first tournament game. Like, I don't know. We could have a whole podcast 2-hour long talking about what Marcus Damask has meant to this program, and that still wouldn't be enough time. So, just awesome game. Can't wait to play in the second round.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Damask has just continued to amaze throughout the season. And I really think he's grown a lot on offense too, just throughout the season, because it felt like early on when teams first started to catch on that, man, Illinois is really going to play through this guy a lot. We know what he wants to do. He wants to get to those back downs, he wants to get to those one-on-one matchups. And it felt like when teams really focused in on trying to take him out of games a little bit earlier on in the season, he could really kind of get shut down and be a non-factor. And recently, teams have tried to do that, and he has put up incredible assist numbers. He's found ways to really impact the game. You saw in the Big Ten tournament, teams were really trying to take him away. Now, he had a really rough game against Ohio State when he went 3 for 16, but the other two games, teams really tried to key in on him, sent a lot of doubles, really tried to trap him further away from the basket than he's used to. And he's just stuffed the stat sheet and been really, really good, just impacting the game, getting the ball moving, playing out of those doubles. And I feel like early on in the season, he's always been a pretty good passer, but felt like you could take him out of the game a lot easier earlier on. And now, at this point, like I would expect that Illinois' next opponent in Duquesne on Saturday, and however long they move on, after watching this Morehead State film, teams are going to be a little more hesitant to aggressively double with the way he's passing. And that's huge because that opens up more one-on-ones for him, and maybe he can have a big offensive game. So I've been so impressed with the way that he's passed and the way he's just impacted the game without necessarily having to go for 26 points and get on one of those heaters, which we know he can still do. And he'll probably get an opportunity to do that now after the way he played out of those traps today. So just really impressive stuff. But the game was won in the second half during that 4-minute stretch, and it really felt like that was going to be the key stretch of the game. When it got to the under 16 timeout and Morehead State took a 1-point lead and they made a couple shots coming out of the halftime, it seems like the key in these high seed, low seed games in the NCAA tournament is that if you're the higher seed and you're the one that, is obviously the high major team and you're the one that has way more talent, if you let that mid-major, lower seeded team stick around and there's 5 minutes to go and it's a tie game, all of a sudden that team's going to have all the confidence in the world. They think they can play with you. They think they can win. All the pressure is going to be on that higher seeded team. The entire arena, other than that team's fans, is going to be rooting for the underdog. You can't let it get to a point where it gets down to the last couple minutes because the advantage is going to go to the team that's trying to pull the upset. And so if Illinois had let Morehead State stick around for 5-7 minutes longer, all of a sudden I think this game goes a whole lot differently. But Illinois was able to go on that huge run. Dane Danger was a huge reason why. What an outstanding performance by him. Mid-major Danger, man. What a beast. He sees that mid-major team and he's going to turn into prime Shaq for a day. That guy loved playing some low and mid-majors. But that was the key stretch in the game for Illinois, in my opinion. That run there between about the 16-minute mark and the 12-minute mark of the second half was where the game was won. And if they hadn't had that, I think this game goes a whole lot differently.
You are totally right about that. I could not agree more. You look at this wouldn't have been a St. Peter's FDU level upset, but you look at those games, St. Peter's wasn't dropping a 12-0 run with 4 minutes left in the game. Like they managed to stick around the whole time. And then they had a short, probably 4-0, 6-0 run towards the end of the game and put the nail in the coffin against a high seed team. But yeah, Illinois, huge run from Dane. Before I talk about Dane, because I know I'm going to go off on a tangent here, huge shout out to Luke Goody. Awesome postseason performer. He has been for the last 3 years, hitting timely threes when he needs to. And huge shout out to Dre Gibbs Lawhorn, 2 massively just timely threes in the first half. I don't know what it is, but Illinois in the postseason, they have the most experienced super senior teams. And there's just times where they don't look too interested in playing and the freshmen have to come in. RJ and Luke versus Houston. I think Ty had a pretty good game against Arkansas last year. Curbelo in 2021 against Loyola. It's just
Adam Miller played well in that game too.
Adam Miller too. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah,
great to see, but it probably should not have to happen. But back to Dane, just dominant mid-major Danger. I haven't heard that. I love that nickname now. We've got another one coming up in 2 days against Duquesne on Saturday. I think he's due for another one of these performances. But yeah, 9 for 9, rebounding too. He's making his free throws at a decent clip now too. Just beautiful stuff. And it's kind of similar when Dane gets going. It's like when Shannon gets going in transition. It's like when Damas gets going with booty ball. We just keep feeding him and it keeps working. Like there's no reason to get away from it. I was yelling at my TV. I think he had like our first 6 points in the second half or something. It went on that little run. I was just yelling, get the ball to Dane. Like Terrence found him in transition. That was beautiful. All the momentum swings to Illinois. And then you saw, like, I meant to make this point last podcast, but Illinois is not like the hunter. We are a 3 seed. We're the hunted, and Illinois needs to play like that. And you saw, I don't know if anybody else noticed this, but during the run, momentum totally shifted. Energy in the arena shifted completely. Illinois goes on the huge run, and Morehead State's possessions were amazing in the first half. They were pretty much getting the shots they wanted. They were hitting the offensive glass, and then they started chucking threes. Like teams are scared of Illinois. Sometimes our fan base is thinking like, "Oh, Illinois, we're down in the dumps. We can't win a tournament game." Like I promise, teams are scared of us, and I kind of saw that. Like Minix forced some tough threes. They had a fadeaway three from like 25 feet. And I was just like, I was thinking to myself, this game's over. If we keep our foot on the pedal, that's what happened. And I don't know, it was a beautiful game towards the end of the second half because Illinois managed to just keep pressure on Morehead State, and that's why they won.
Yeah, that's really all it takes against these teams that are trying to pull off these huge upsets is you put the pressure back on their sideline, and if you let them have confidence all game long, if you let them get some open shots, if you let them feel like they belong on the floor with you, then that's how they're going to play. And for 25 minutes, that's what Illinois did, and you could tell that Morehead State, and they had a pretty nice contingent of fans in the building too. It felt like they felt confident and they went into halftime and that locker room was feeling a lot better about how the game was going than Illinois was. But that run was so huge because you felt Morehead State start to press like, we can't let this get away from us. I got to be the hero. I got to make this three to try to cut into this. And absolutely, those possessions were a lot more stagnant and just didn't result in as good a looks as they were early. And that's a direct result of Illinois putting the pressure back on them and forcing them to press a little bit and try to overthink things and play outside of themselves when it felt like they were really executing well in the first half. Although I think Illinois deserves some credit too. I thought, as it's been for like the last 2 weeks, some defensive issues in the first half and to come out and some of them are solved in the second half. I thought they did defend a lot of Morehead's actions a lot better in the second half. It felt like the attention to detail on defense in the first half lacked a lot. And, screen navigation was pretty poor outside of really Terrence Shannon, and even he got caught up on a few. And then Morehead State ran some really good stuff. They had some really good sets. They run a ton of sets to try to get shooters open, and it felt like Illinois was a step behind a lot of them. And Illinois was also trying to gamble for some steals in the first half that directly resulted to shots.
That was brutal.
And in the second half, it felt like they were a lot more disciplined and they guarded better, and Morehead was trying to run a lot of flares and a lot of little pin downs to get threes, and Illinois was getting around those better and not letting them get as clean a look. So Illinois deserves some credit as well. But it'd be nice to just come out early and look a little better. I mean, it's been the last week, all 3 Big Ten tournament games pretty much, and now Morehead State, you fall behind early in the first half, and it takes a big-time second-half effort. It'd be nice to not have that happen. It's nice to know you have that gear and you have those adjustments in your pocket, but I think it'd be wise, as Illinois tries to make a deep run in this tournament, to probably not put themselves in that hole.
Yeah, if we keep advancing in this tournament, there's going to come a time where, especially in this really tough region, you're playing Auburn in the Elite Eight, maybe Iowa State in the Sweet 16. There's some teams that are going to be able to put us away. UConn, of course, they're going to be able to put us away if we fall behind quickly like that. So definitely something to keep in mind if you want to make this awesome tournament run that we all do. The second half dominant strategy works against Ohio State, Nebraska, Morehead State, but I don't know how long that's going to be able to continue. But I think lost in all this, like Dane, amazing game, Damask, amazing game. Terrence Shannon just continues to be just elite, all-time single season scorer or whatever in Illinois history, over 600 points this season. Missed a couple games as well.
Games. He missed 6 games and he broke the record after 1 NCAA tournament game. Just think about how absurd that is. That's unbelievable.
Third-team All-American, even though he's clearly the second best player minimum in the country, in my honest opinion. But did you notice like the severe lack of fouls in this game. I'm not complaining because we won by 15 plus, controlled the game towards the end, but they were not calling much. Terrence Shannon was kind of limited in terms of getting to the free throw line. He was averaging like 15 attempts a game, only got 6 today and still put up 26 points. So I'm not complaining about the officiating, but that just goes to show how dominant he's been even without free throw shooting.
The best month of the year is here, which is why you need to know that we are now partnered with BetMGM. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 all through the NCAA tournament. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use the bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM, regardless of whether or not that bet hits. Here's the best part. All you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your hard-earned money. This is how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you get up to $1,500 in bonus bets, regardless of the outcome of your bet. Just make sure you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. Most importantly, we do have some fun stuff coming for the conference tournaments and especially for the NCAA tournament. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boost, and what I love the most, a nice parlay boost for anything you could possibly imagine betting on in the NCAA tournament, from odds and getting an at-large bid to Final Four futures to the highest seed to make to the Sweet 16. I'm calling it right now. BetMGM is the king of the prop bet for your March Madness needs. So go download the BetMGM app, use the code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request: the best way to support the Field of 68 and our content you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the pod, like and share the YouTube videos, tell your friends about us. It helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show.
Yeah, looking ahead to Duquesne, huge upset of BYU. BYU just looked miserable in that opening round game just before Illinois. Couldn't hit a shot. Duquesne just kept the pressure on them, pretty much led the entire way for the most part. So we've got an interesting 11 seed matchup. Duquesne did not finish very well in their conference respectively, but they did go on a pretty nice tournament run in the A10. So just interesting game coming up. I think Illinois has a pretty good shot to make their first Sweet 16 since 05.
Yeah, it all is aligned for Illinois this year. No need to have any conversations about, oh, this draw sucks. Illinois got screwed. BYU's out. So you standing in your way of the first Sweet 16 in 19 years for this program, Morehead State and Duquesne. So if this isn't the year, I'm throwing my hands up and saying I don't know if it's ever happening. I don't know what to tell you. That's not to say you can take Duquesne lightly and treat them like they're some scrub team that you can show up and beat easily. I mean, it's a Duquesne team that's won 9 games in a row. Obviously, they played in an A10 conference that hasn't been great, but really good defensive team, top 30 in the country in defensive efficiency. During that 9-game win streak, they've held 8 of the 9 opponents to under 70 points. But it is going to be a different story. They haven't seen Terrence Shannon Jr. They haven't seen a guy like Marcus Damas. They haven't seen anybody with the offensive explosiveness that this Illinois team has. So it's going to be quite the challenge on them. But this is a team that's playing inspired basketball right now. Their coach, Keith Dambrot, has announced his retirement before the tournament. So his career's over as soon as they get eliminated. And they've played great basketball here. Like you said, 6th place in the A10. So they needed to run through the A10 tournament to even get here. And then they go out and they beat a BYU team that has been really good and has knocked off the likes of Kansas and Iowa State this year. So you can't walk into this game and see Duquesne and get off to another slow start and sleepwalk through this one. This is a humongous game for Illinois. It's probably the biggest game the program has had in 19 years. When you think about all that has come, I mean, just how long it's been and how much talk there's been about just get to the second weekend. Obviously, this team has bigger goals in mind, but that game on Saturday is as big a game as this Illinois program has had in a long time. And Illinois, this team, needs to treat it that way and come in and really take it to Duquesne, because you should have a lot of matchup advantages. As good as they've been defensively within their own conference, they're going to face their toughest test of the season. And Illinois catches a huge break in the bracket. I'd be a lot more scared personally of BYU than Duquesne, obviously, as almost anybody would. But that doesn't mean Illinois can take them lightly. I still expect a pretty tight, close round of 32 game. But Illinois, I think, sets up pretty nicely for them.
Yeah, the thing that stuck out to me was, well, honestly, I was not expecting Duquesne to win that game at all.
Me
I was
neither.
watching the game, of course, but shocking upset. But yeah, the defense, you mentioned the stats. I think they're top 30 in Ken Palm defensively and efficiency wise. Day Grant, pretty good score, but their defense just really limited BYU in pretty much all aspects. BYU was relying on one of their bench scorers to really carry them. Like if that guy wasn't going off, that game could have been a double-digit win for Duquesne probably. But yeah, defensively, of course, they haven't seen Terrence Shannon. They haven't seen Dane. Probably don't have anyone to match up with Dane. I'll have to check on that. I've been too focused on the Illinois win itself. But it's kind of the same story, in my opinion, as the Morehead State game, as any game is against a mid-major for this Illinois team. We have the length, we have the height, we have the athletes. Like, if Duquesne wins, we're going to be looking flustered offensively, I think, which we have not seen in months at this point. So, I don't know. I think Duquesne, like you said, obviously really good offense, but Illinois has the talent. They have the athletes. We've been playing just as well as they have. And like you said, like massive game. I think maybe the Illinois Loyola game, just given one seed, given the Big Ten tournament title, all that, probably a bigger game than this one. But I mean, we're splitting hairs here. Massive game for Illinois. Haven't been to a second weekend in 19 years. Yeah, just huge game on Saturday.
Yeah, to answer your question there, I don't see anybody that's going to be great matchup for Dane Danger. Starting big for Duquesne, David Dixon. He's 6'9", 215. So I think Dane should probably have his way there in that matchup. You'd expect them to probably try to double him, get it out of his hand. They also rotate in a 6'10", 235-pound senior, and no chance I'm going to pronounce this name right, Dusan Mohoric. Or Moharic. That butchered that one awfully, but no, it's a Duquesne team that they've got some size. They got a couple guys out on the wing with some length, but their backcourt's pretty small with Jimmy Clark and Day Grant. Those two guys can heat up and score, but 6'2" and 6'3", you'd imagine Marcus Damas going to try to take advantage of some of those matchups. We'll see how Duquesne plays him. Like I said, I think teams will be a little more hesitant to try to aggressively double him as far away from the basket as they have been, the way he's passed it. But we'll see. You'd imagine Duquesne's probably going to want to try to give some help to some of those guards in that matchup. And Terrence Shannon Jr. obviously is going to be huge. The way that he's just come out early in games, really just dialed in. That's been the thing, too. Early on in Shannon's Illini career, it felt like it took him a while to get settled into games. And you'd see some of these big second halves or big spurts in a game. But he's come out Big Ten tournament and obviously in the first half against Morehead State, and he's been the best player on the floor from the first second of the game. Like, that's what Illinois needs. And I think he should obviously be able to overpower Duquesne. And if Illinois can speed up this Duquesne team who plays pretty slow and Terrence Shannon can get out and run, I think it's over for them. Duquesne's best chance here in this game is to slow it down and try to make this a grinder of a slow half-court game in the 60s and 70s, and Illinois got to be able to speed it up. And it was interesting, too, against Morehead State. It felt like the game was played at Illinois' pace the entire time, and you saw what happened when a 40-minute game is played at the pace Illinois wants to play against a slower-playing, half-court-oriented team. Morehead State made some shots, kept up for 20 minutes, and then they kind of ran out of gas, and all of a sudden the talent level and the talent disparity bears out when Illinois controls the tempo like that and is able to get out and run a little bit. So I think a similar script will have to work for Illinois in this game. And, I think it's a Duquesne team that's going to try to be physical with them. You saw against BYU, one of the biggest things that stood out watching that game was that Duquesne was beating them up. Like, it didn't look like a Big 12 team versus an A-10 team. Duquesne was beating BYU up, and some of those guys, one guy had a bloody nose 5 minutes into the game, and BYU was hitting the deck, and they just looked overwhelmed. They're a team of a bunch of shooters who like to space it out and really run and try to score, and Duquesne made it a slower physical game, and BYU wasn't ready for that. Duquesne's not going to be able to do that against Illinois, assuming Illinois shows up to play. Illinois' got as much physicality as you'll find out there, as much size as you'll find out there. So I feel pretty good. About this matchup. It's March, so obviously you can't take anybody lightly, and see teams like Duquesne make the second weekend all the time and pull off these upsets. And like I said, they're super confident and playing for their coach for the last time. But obviously like how this matchup shakes out. I think anytime you run into a mid-major team, one that finishes sixth in their conference, you should feel pretty good. But even matchup-wise, I think this is one that Illinois should probably have a lot of success with.
Yeah, their guards are pretty small. As we mentioned, they don't really have anybody to stick with Dane Danger in the paint. But I think as much as you want to look at the on-paper stuff, look at box scores, look at statistics, efficiencies, like as you talked about, I think Duquesne wanted it more today against BYU. And I think certain players on Illinois today wanted it a lot more than Morehead State's roster did. Like, I think you could see, like, you see a basket go in today. I think there was a tangible thing that you saw of Terrence Shannon just wanting it, literally wanting it more than the other team. First half, like diving for that ball, getting the transition dunk, just ripping it out of guys' hands. Second half, Illinois kind of slowed down. They faltered a little bit. He runs down the length of the court, throws it off Minix's foot or something. Like, he just wanted it more. Goody wanted it more. Dane wanted it more. These guys showed up today. If Illinois doesn't show up on Saturday, this could be a nice little Cinderella run for Duquesne. Like, I think obviously the sixth in their conference don't really have the size, just like not really the on-court stuff. But if they show up, they're playing for their coach. They're looking for a Cinderella run. They've got LeBron on their side, sending them shoes too. They're looking to be. But yeah,
it's all in the script. The script is setting up perfectly for this Duquesne fairy tale run. They'll make a documentary about it next week, leading up to the Sweet 16. You can't let it happen. You got to show up.
Yeah, I thought that, but Long Beach State with their fired coach, they hung around for a half, but they didn't manage to beat Arizona, thankfully. But yeah, just Illinois has to want it more. They have the talent, of course. They're the better team by far. Nobody's debating that. But if they don't show up, there's a real chance this second weekend's streak continues of not making it.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing that I'd love to see in this game is throw the first punch. Like, Illinois had the first punch thrown to them for the last 4 games, it's felt like. And Morehead State delivered a huge blow, made 3 shots early in the game. You could tell they were as confident could be in the first couple minutes of the game. And Illinois deserves a lot of credit for pretty much immediately answering that and playing right with them. But like, just throw the first punch in this game. Duquesne's a team that has really struggled offensively at times this season. And for as much as Illinois has had their struggles on defense and for some of the game today, Morehead State was beating them with some of their sets, and Illinois was getting a little too over-aggressive and lackadaisical. This Duquesne team, I'm not worried about them just like dominating you on offense, and they don't have as many extensive set plays as Morehead State did. And like, Illinois should come out and score the first couple buckets of this game and force Duquesne to play from behind. Because if Duquesne gets behind in this game, I think it's over. I think Illinois has a chance to blow this team out, but it's going to take a fast start, because if Illinois can get out and run early and control the tempo of the game, obviously, but really throw that first punch to Duquesne, it's a Duquesne team that, unless Jimmy Clark and Day Grant are making shots and really having huge days, which they can do, Duquesne's going to struggle to score. And so if you have a double-digit lead, like in the first half of this game, I don't think Duquesne has a 12-0 run in them to cut into that and really put pressure back on you and make a huge run. So, but like we talked about earlier, in some of these games, like, if you just let them hang around and hang around and hang around, and you let them start fast and feel like they're in the game the entire way, that's where I get nervous, because this is a Duquesne team that I think will have the advantage late in the game if it gets down to that, because all the pressure is going to be on Illinois. And these guys know. I mean, Brad Underwood knows it, and these players know it. Like, 2 minutes left, tie game, Sweet 16 on the line, Duquesne standing across from you, there's going to be immense pressure on that Illinois bench. So I would love to see Illinois finally come out and be the aggressors early in this game, because if they do that, I think they could blow this Duquesne team out. I'm not expecting that to happen in a round of 32 NCAA tournament game by any means. I think this will be a pretty competitive game, and we'll get to predictions in a minute here, but I think Illinois has the potential to really blow this team out or really control the game the entire way if they get off to a fast start and force Duquesne to really try to, come back and have the offensive firepower to make a huge run on them, which I just don't think they're capable of doing.
Yeah, I've got one more quick point to make,
Yep.
Similar to your point. Illinois really succeeds and wins games when they play at their pace, but at times, even this past week or so, at times when they're playing at their pace, they're prone to defensive lapses that we've seen all season, extended defensive droughts where they just don't really look into the game. They keep scoring at this point. They're not giving up 14-0 runs or anything for the most part, but at times, just relaxed closeouts, not getting over screens, miscommunications on defense. We saw a couple times, there were TV timeouts where Illinois players are arguing going into the huddle, and it's all right, man, this is March. You're down 3 points to a mid-major. Can we not have these sort of miscommunications defensively, stuff like that? It's March. You got to win this game. It's win or go home. So I think you clean that up and you continue to play at your speed, at your pace, making shots. Guys are doing their things individually. I think I'm not going to make a score prediction. I refuse to do that because honestly, I don't really know that much about Duquesne, but even if I did, I don't want to make a score prediction. But I don't know. I think we're in line for a Sweet 16 appearance this year.
Yeah, I mean it's all set up. Like I said, if you can't get it done Saturday, if Duquesne, who was 6th place in the A10, finds a way to keep you out of the second weekend, I'm done. I don't know what to.
I'm finding a new hobby if that happens.
At that point, you throw your hands up and you say, "Are we cursed? Did we do something to upset the forces above us? What are we doing here?" And that's not to disrespect Duquesne, but man, it's all lined up for you. We don't even have to have any discourse about, oh, Illinois got screwed, another tough draw. Here comes 5-seeded BYU or somehow a 6 seed. You finally catch a NCAA tournament break and that Duquesne knocks off BYU, and you have to take advantage of that, and it's all aligned for you to make that run. I'm with you, though. I mean, we gave our predictions on the show last week, and we both had Illinois going to the Elite Eight and taking on UConn, and I had that with BYU advancing in my bracket. So I sure as heck am not changing my prediction with Duquesne standing in front of Illinois. I think Illinois will ultimately get it done. Based on how things have gone, I'd love to believe that Illinois comes out and really just takes control early. I think it's probably going to follow a similar script in that Duquesne makes some shots and it's close in the first half, and Illinois has a couple defensive breakdowns and a couple starters start a little slow, and then Illinois really, the talent disparity plays out late. I think Illinois wins this game by 10 or 12 when it's all said and done, but I think Duquesne hangs around. It's March at the end of the day. I'd be surprised if around a 32 game, regardless of who it is a 20-point blowout. I'd love to have it happen, but just win. 1 point wins for 5 straight games, and we're hoisting a title, and I don't care. No one cares. No one cares about the margin. Get it done this time of year. Regular season, you can nitpick, we only beat Indiana by 8, and there's some concerning stuff. Just win the game. 1 point win will do. But I think Illinois should get it done. Man, how awesome would it be to be back on this podcast in 2 days talking about a second weekend, previewing more games. First time since I was 1 year old that we'd be able to do that.
It's so crazy, man. It's been this unattainable feat. It's 2 games. You're a 3 seed, you play a 14 seed and an 11 seed from mid-major conferences. I don't know. It just seems like we should have done it by now. I wrote a quick article on the Champagne Room a couple days ago. Since the championship run in 2005, so from 2006 to 2023, Illinois made the round of 32 5 times. So this will be our 6th now. We're 0-5 in the 5 games, of course. There were 46 other schools that made at least 5 round of 32 appearances in that time frame. 46 of them, 100% of them made the Sweet 16. So I don't know. Illinois has been kind of cursed. I think we break this curse in 2 days. And we're on here celebrating about our first Sweet 16 appearance since we were toddlers.
I also do want to say, too, this team can do more than the Sweet 16. I'm not sitting here saying that, everything's happy at a Sweet 16 appearance. I think this team has a higher ceiling to them. However, based on just how that feat in particular has been so elusive for Illinois. There's no question that just getting to the second weekend and going through next week, previewing a Sweet 16 game, will feel so much bigger than it would for another program. And I think it's okay to feel that way, but I don't want to misconstrue it as like, well, Sweet 16, I'm happy and we're done. Like this team, the way they've played here recently, they can do more than that, but it's just such a marker that Illinois hasn't hit that it'll feel like a Final Four if Illinois wins on Saturday, just based on how long Illinois had to wait to even make a second weekend. But I do think, hey, get me a win against Duquesne Saturday, and this team absolutely can compete in any game they play next weekend. So don't just stop there. But man, just get me one game at a time in this tournament. Survive and advance. That's what it's all about. And we will be back on Sunday to break it down and hopefully be previewing the Sweet 16. How's your bracket looking so far? We're like 8 games in, and hasn't been like a ton of toss-up games, but how you looking?
If Nevada holds on here, they're up 6 with 4 minutes as we're recording. I'll be 7 of 8 with my only loss being BYU, who I had losing to Illinois the next round. So this has been the ideal Thursday afternoon for me. I could not script a better Thursday afternoon so far.
Yeah, doing a little better than me. I really stupidly bet against March Tom Izzo earlier. I had Mississippi State, so 6 of 8 start for me. But yeah, Nevada's kind of choked this one here as we're recording this pretty shortly after Illinois ended. Nevada up 6 with 4:06 to go. They were up like 17 like 10 minutes ago. So I don't know what's going on there, but we will be back Sunday, as we said, and we will talk Illinois, Duquesne, break that all down. Hopefully not have to have a conversation reflecting on the season, but instead looking ahead to a matchup in the Sweet 16 on Thursday. But for now, be sure to drop a follow on our Twitter at Champagne on Ice. Subscribe to the Field of 68 Podcast Network YouTube channel. Find us anywhere you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else. We will be there. And we will be there all throughout this NCAA tournament run as long as it lasts for Illinois, and hopefully it's 3 more weeks. Let's do it. Enjoy the games, everyone. Enjoy the game Saturday, Illinois, Duquesne. No time announced yet. There'll be a time by the time this releases. You'll know what time it is. We don't know yet, but whenever it is, we'll record after, and we'll see you then. Have a great weekend. This has been